Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 class guide. So this is not only a PvP class guide, but a general world vs world slash PvP slash combat kind of class guide. So I'll go through some of the roles of the Necromancer, the special ability Death Shroud, some weapon skills, some simple rotations, and cool utilities, and what is the meta of the Necromancer. And yeah, so that's about it. I'll start by going over some of the possible things you can run. So Necromancer can either run a Marauder Amulet or a Berserker Amulet when they're running the Power Well build. So the Power Well Necromancer runs Well of Suffering and Well of Corruption. This is just for massive AoE damage during a team fight, and it's actually very strong, but it's very squishy, so you have to have good positioning and make good use of your Death Shroud so you don't get instantly killed. So the build's very high risk, high reward kind of thing, so if you can pull it off, you'll do very well. Similar to running like a big bursty one-shot Mesmer or Thief, high risk, high reward. You get killed, but you can kill others very easily, and that build also runs Lich to help with its burst. So Necromancer has an elite called Lich form, where you turn into a big scary green monster. That's how some people like to put it, but I'll just switch over to a Berserker Amulet and show you here. Yeah, that's about it. Your auto attack does massive single target damage, and your number 2 does quite a bit of damage as well. Boom, and places a big mark on the ground. Number 3 chills. Number 4 summons 5 minions, and I cannot remember what number 5 does. But so that's Lich form, and I'll show off the other Necromancer elite once this is off cooldown in a bit. So yeah, those are the amulets Necro runs for that build. Another popular Necro build is Celestial Signet Necro, which runs Celestial Amulet and makes use of 3 signets. So that's what I was running before, just when I started the video. So Necromancer has a trait here, Signets of Suffering, which convert boons to conditions and give you 3 might stacks, and have reduced recharge, so they're all on a very low cooldown. And they convert boons to conditions, which is very useful, and give you some might stacks. So if you run Strength Rune with this build, you can actually generate quite high might from that, combined with Siphoned Power. So if you strike a foe below 50% health, you get 2 stacks of might. This is a 1-second cooldown, so you can't hit them with a really fast hitting skill. It works with Life Siphon. This triggers quite a lot of might stacks for you, and Locust Swarm as well, although it's a bit overkill, and you have to be up in their face, so it's a bit risky. But yeah, so that's the 2 main builds of Necro at the moment, are Celestial Signet and Power Wells. Also Minion Mancer, of course, is a very old build that's not too effective, but very fun to play, where you summon a big bunch of minions around you, they follow you around and they attack for you. It's actually pretty cool. And that's that. So I'll show you them attacking here. They don't do too much damage, but it's a lot of pressure and bodies on the field, and they all have an active ability, like you can explode them to do quite a bit of damage, immobilize, and then follow up with an explode. And there's one that blinds and blinks and gets life force for you. So those are the minions. Minion Mancer is what it's called. I'm yet to make a build for that, but you can find the Power Well Necro video build on my channel, and the Celestial Signet Necro build. So I've been playing a bit of Necro recently, so that's why I decided to make this guide. But yeah, Necro has access to corruption skills, which apply boons to yourself, so hence the name Corruption. They self-corrupt, so they apply a bit of weakness to you, and they also do something to your foes. So Corrosive Poison Cloud recently got a big buff, so it now blocks missiles for 8 seconds, and can be traded to have a 20-second cooldown, which means it has a pretty much close to 50% uptime. It's 40% uptime of missile blocking, so this stops like rangers pew-pewing you, Necro Liches and Death Shrouds auto-attacking you, engineer rifle skills, things like that, grenades, yeah. And then this one applies vulnerability on yourself and spreads conditions on a target foe to nearby foes, sorry. So a really good combo you can do is apply Signet of Spite, which puts all these conditions on a foe, and instantly follow up with Epidemic, which spreads them all to nearby foes. And you can run Corrupt Boon, which converts 5 boons on your foe into conditions. It applies a lot of bleeding to yourself though, and poison, but still an unblockable 1200 range skill that goes through Aegis and everything, stability, yeah. And then Blood is Power, just 8 stacks of Self Might. You apply bleeding as well to your foe for quite a lot of damage and quite a long duration, and also a bit of Self Bleeding and Torment, which is a bit dangerous, but you can clear it with skills like Putrid Mark. So any of these corruption skills can mean you transfer a boon to your foe through Dark Path or something like that, the Necro Death Shroud 2 skill, and your Putrid Mark removes 3 conditions from you and puts them onto a foe. So for example, you can run like Blood is Power on this medium guy and get the conditions on yourself, instantly transfer them to your foe, and continue to pressure them down with your high might stacks. So yeah, those are the 3 builds pretty much that Necros run, but Power Wellermancer Necro, so the 2 well 1 spectral skill, is mainly run in the low ranks, about 1 to 40, but once you get it higher than that, you want to start running Celestial Signet Necro, because it's very hard to kill, puts out a lot of pressure, and actually helps your team quite a lot. I'll go into some of the trait lines. So a Necro has 5 trait lines, of course. In the expansion they're getting Greatsword, which is really cool, and that changes their F1 Death Shroud into a more melee focused, damaging, CCing, chilling type of thing. And the Greatsword's really cool. The number 2 skill has a 0-second cooldown if a foe's below 50% health, and it hits like 15k every time. It's pretty awesome. But apart from that, so I'll get into the trait lines. We have Spite, Curses, Soul Reaping, Blood Magic, and Death Magic. So Spite is focused on... Actually, a lot of Necromancers run Spite thanks to the Close to Death trait. So with the Power Well traits to get a bit more damage, you run Close to Death, but with the Celestial Signet build you run Signets of Suffering. And then most Necros run this for Chill of Death, so you get an automatic cast on a foe when they're below 50% health every 20 seconds, so it removes 3 boons, chills, and applies vulnerability thanks to a trait that we have, but it's mainly used for the removal of 3 boons and a quite high damage and chill. And it can be run for chilling inflicts vulnerability. You can run Spiteful Renewal, so if you hit a low health foe you can remove a condition and heal up, or you can just get a focus recharge trait here. Where's my focus? Here we go. So yeah, focus is actually not a bad weapon here. So it's similar to Guardian, but with no block. It has boon removal. Necro is all about boon conversion, boon removal, things like that. It's actually a really fun playstyle and works very well against boon heavy teams like Guardians, DDLEs, and a lot of those things are in the current meta right now. So Curses gives us access to... so this gives you a passive signet, so whenever you have 3 signets on yourself, your next critical hit will trigger Plague Signet, which sends them all to your foe and converts some of their boons to conditions, sorry. This is also run for blinding a target inflicts chill, so you can run a cool combo with this is running Well of Darkness, which pulses blind, which means it will also pulse chill. You can run things that increase your chill duration as well. This makes it really effective. Then you can run Path of Corruption, is pretty much the best trait in this trait line, unless you run some of the corruption skills, but this means your Death Shroud number 2 skill converts boons to conditions as well. And Cast Enfeeble when you enter Death Shroud, and crits inflict weakness. So this has a 50% weakness uptime, because you'll be critically hitting quite often. And Enfeeble is just a bit of bleeding and weakness pressure as well. If you time it correctly and you get reduced recharge on your Death Shroud, you can actually maintain very close to 100% weakness uptime. So weakness means the enemy can't dodge, and they have 50% chance to deal 50% damage, which means they basically do 25% less damage, which is actually very strong in a team fight. Soul Reaping gives you access to pretty much most of your Death Shroud traits, so increased movement while in Death Shroud, passive 25%, reduces recharge on Death Shroud itself from 10 seconds down to 7 seconds, although most Necros run Soul Marks for the unblockable marks, and they generate a bit of free life force. Then life force drains slower while in Death Shroud. This is a big trait, very important. Drains 50% slower, it's 50% more effective pretty much, and a reduced recharge on the skills. And then of course increased critical hit chance while in Shroud, so you have 50% increased crit chance while in shroud. So if you have 30%, like most Necros do with Celestial build, add a bit of Fury to that, and your Death Perception trait, and you're up to 100%, which is quite awesome. You can also drop your wells and instantly follow up with Death Shroud, and they have 100% crit chance. Some Necro builds also run Foot in the Grave for the free stun break, and Stability for the stomp. So you can instantly switch into Death Shroud while you're stomping and get a free stomp down. Or if you get CC'd by a warrior, a quick way to break out is through Foot in the Grave. There's also a really good signet here. Where is it? So Plague Signet is the condition removal one, and it's also a stun break on a 24-second cooldown, which is pretty strong. Necros also run Spectral skills here. Spectral Armor is a 50-second cooldown stun break, but it gives you protection, and you gain a lot of life force when taking damage. And Spectral Walk gives you swiftness, and also is a stun break, but it's on a higher cooldown. But the swiftness is great for moving around and getting to points. For the other two trait lines, Blood Magic. So Blood Magic is focused on your wells, so this has Vampiric Rituals, which is the well trait. Also the Life Siphon skill, so yeah, you give Vampiric Aura to your nearby foes. A lot of you might have seen this before, but you siphon 36 extra health when you hit. So siphon means you deal 36 damage and gain 36 health back. So with fast hitting skills like Whirling Axe or 100 Blades, things like that on a warrior, even the Thief, Elite Dagger Storm skill, Mesmer Blood Frenzy, anything that hits fast, it makes great use of this trait. And you can also run the Dagger Recharge trait, and you can cast a Well of Blood when reviving an ally, which is actually quite a strong skill. I'm surprised it's like most revive skills drop a crappy skill on the opponent or foe or ally that you're reviving, but this one actually drops a big like 6 or 7k heal whenever you start reviving an ally. That also gives protection and siphons life. And then Death Magic. So Death Magic is focused on conditions and minions, I believe. Yeah, so you also, this trait here, Unholy Sanctuary. So this means you regenerate your normal health while in Death Shroud. So if you have like 2000 health, you can switch to Death Shroud, then your normal health will start going up, and you'll just be using your Death Shroud health instead. And then another one here, so you gain 30 toughness and minus 22% condition damage. Whenever you inflict a condition on a foe, this makes you quite tanky with condition builds. So there's quite a few tanky condition builds that run this trait. Then Death Nova is not a very great trait, but you mainly run this for you can gain power based on toughness and a lot of power while in Death Shroud. You can also your minion traits, so this is your one on your main minion traits. So as I said before, the minions all do cool things and have active effects, and this trait means they deal more damage and take conditions from you, and transfer conditions to targets. And then minions have increased health and gain bonus toughness for each minion you control. So you can run Bone Minions, Bone Fiend, Shadow Fiend, and Summon Flesh Golem. That puts you up to 5 minions, because Bone Minions are 2. That gets you an extra 100 toughness, and they all have a lot more health. So that's a very important trait for Necromancer. So yeah, those are some of the traits. I'll go through the weapons as well. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. So yeah, Necro has access to an axe skill, which got a bit of a buff recently, increased to 900 range, down from 600, up from 600. So the auto attack just is a normal auto attack that deals damage, applies vulnerability. Not too weak, not too strong. The number 2 skill is very high burst and life force generation. So you gain 12% of your life force, and it does quite high damage if you're spec'd correctly. An Unholy Feast converts boons to conditions on 5 foes, and gives you retaliation and applies cripple, so it's not too bad of a skill. Although many Necros run main hand dagger if they're running a power focus build or even a celestial build, thanks to the healing it has on number 2 skill and the immobilize, and condition builds run scepter main hand. But yeah, so dagger main hand generates life force here, actually quite a lot, it's 8% per chain. The number 2 siphons 9 times 4 by 414 health, so 9 times 4, 1, 4. That's about 3,700, something like that. So you gain 3,700 health just from a number 2 skill on your weapon, and it has a 12-second cooldown. Then you can immobilize a foe as well to make sure they stand in your wells or something like that, or make sure you get off a life siphon or a death shroud 1, anything like that. Immediately immobilize, switch to death shroud, auto attack, and things like that. And we keep getting our life force up through dagger, and let's siphon. So, Scepter main hand is a condition weapon set, although the number 3 skill actually hits quite hard and applies torment. But yeah, the Scepter auto attack chain just gives a lot of conditions to the foe. I did not know I had that. Cool. So yeah, it applies bleeding, then poison and bleeding, so it's actually pretty strong condition pressure. If you're spec'd correctly for this is actually deadly and devastating. Get a cripple, and then number 2 skill cripples and applies bleeding, so once again more condition pressure. And number 3 is a big damage spike. Combined with torment, it also gains life force for you. It has a cool thing where if your foes are above the condition threshold, they gain additional torment per condition, so that's why condition stacking is very important with that type of build, but let's not get too deep into that. With Staff is pretty much run on every Necromancer build, power or not. But it's mainly run for its utility and its really good weapon skills. So the number 1 is just a 1200 range skill that pierces and gives you life force. Number 2 skill, a bit of condition pressure, 2 stacks of bleeding for 10 seconds. It's enough to make your foe want to remove them. And it gives you regen for 6 seconds, and it has a 4 3/4 second cooldown, so it's permanent regen. Number 3 applies chill and poison, so this is really good. It's also a poison combo field for a little bit afterwards. It's about 3 seconds, 4 seconds maybe. Then Putrid Mark is your main source of condition transferal through weapon skill. So this transfers 3 conditions from yourself to your foe and deals quite high damage. It's also a blast finisher. So if an ally pops a water field on an enemy, you can drop this and it will trigger, and boom, there goes your blast finisher for a heal. A thing to note is that marks do not work on downed bodies, they don't trigger, so you can still drop them on downed bodies so allies can't res them, or they have to waste a dodge to res them. But they don't work on downed bodies. You can also use them to try and bait out, like, figure out where a stealth opponent is. So if a thief stealths and comes towards you, you can kind of mark up the ground, and if the mark disappears, it means he's there. Or even if the mark disappears, like, even if they dodge through it, it still gives away their location, but it doesn't make them take damage. Number 5 is an unblockable CC. It's only unblockable if you run the trait, but yeah, it's unblockable CC. It's a 1 second fear. The 1 second isn't too long, but it's just mainly run for the CC to interrupt a foe who's rezzing or stomping. And also Warhorn, which is run in most builds. Where is my Warhorn? Let's switch back to Dagger and find the Warhorns here. Okay, the Warhorn also has an unblockable Daze, which is mainly used for the interrupt, and Locust Swarm, which gives you a lot of swiftness and cripple, gives you life force, and it impacts a lot of time, so it's great for triggering your sigils like air and fire. And Dagger offhand, so it blinds the foe, bounces 3 times, it's just good for a little extra blind. Transfer 3 conditions to your target on a successful attack, so it's another condition transfer, so that's why Dagger offhand is run some of the time. And also it can be run in condition builds for the bleeding and weakness that it puts on a foe. And then Focus offhand, I spoke about that before, it just applies regen and vulnerability. This skill applies life force, and the number 5 skill I covered already. And Warhorn's already been covered, so that's pretty much all the weapon skills. Down skill in Necromancer, number 1 heals you and steals life, so it deals damage while healing you, so it's actually quite strong. This makes you win most downed battles unless you're versing like a ranger or a warrior who will just pop vengeance and kill you. And number 2 is a 2 second fear, great for interrupting foes who are trying to stomp you or trying to res another person. And number 3 spawns like a well on the ground, applies a lot of poison, so great if you're down against another person, just poison them to reduce their healing, and it's a very large range as well. So that's why Necro wins most downed battles, and number 4 is Bandage, of course. So yeah, the role of Necromancer in the power well build that runs double wells is to just roam around and stay with your team, dropping wells where you can and ranging from afar with Death Shroud. The Celestial Signet is used again for team fights, and it's mainly used for taking out the tanky or boon heavy classes like Ellie and Guardian, which there are a lot of, and Minion Mance is just a general for fun, unranked type of build that is great against newer players, but as soon as you verse a solid team that can instantly focus down an area, all your minions will just instantly die, then the build's rendered useless. But yeah, I'll go through Death Shroud, so I'll only have a limited time to show you the skills, but it trains very slowly thanks to my traits. Number 1's Life Blast. You gain a stack of might each time you do this. Deal more damage within 600 range. This is a very hard hitting skill if you're running the right build. So Dark Path applies chill, bleeding, and converts 2 boons to conditions as well. It's an unblockable 1200 range gap closer. I'll just link the other skills here because I'm going to run out of Death Shroud. Where is that? So yeah, Doom. So Doom inflicts a fear on an opponent. Within 600 range, the fear is a little bit longer, and it's 1200 range distance. It deals 48 damage, which is extremely poor, but I don't know why that's even there. But the fear is great for instantly interrupting someone. You can instantly switch to Death Shroud and then precast 3 mid-switch, so it instantly goes off. Life Transfer is a really great skill that deals a lot of damage to multiple targets and gives you more Death Shroud. So if your Death Shroud's low, you can pop Life Transfer in the middle of a team fight and it will slowly go back up. Then Tainted Shackles applies Torment to foes, great for condition builds and Immobilize. It also deals a big spike of damage at the end of the duration. So yeah, you can pause and read that if you want. I'll try and gain a bit more life force here just to show you that skill. You can also only activate Death Shroud once it's above 10%. That's good to note. Yeah, let's farm some more life force. So as you saw, when he dies, a little green ball falls out of him. An orb of death, I guess you could call it. And that gives you a bit more life force. I'll try and show that off here. When he's dead, like a green orb will fly out and give me life force. When this guy respawns, I'll show you Life Transfer. It's actually a really good skill. You can also trait, so when you activate Life Transfer, any downed foe gets teleported towards you. I think that's in the Blood Magic line. Where is it? Yeah, so Shroud skill 4 heals and revives nearby allies, and up to 5 downed nearby allies teleport to your location while you channel the skill. But yeah, here it is. So it just it connects you to up to 5 nearby foes and draws in all the life force from them. Number 5 does a similar thing, but it applies a big line. This can also be done while in stealth to figure out where stealth foes are. So if there's a thief or something in Shadow Refuge or a Mesmer just mass invises, you can switch to Death Shroud and cast that skill. I can quickly show off how to deal with some of the classes, but this is going to be a bit quicker than usual. If you want to see me play Necro, you can look at my Necromancer build guide. So a lot of people have been saying good things about that and been commenting recently. And the Celestial Signet guide. But yeah, Necro is not my strongest class, nor is it my favorite, but I still play it. It's pretty strong occasionally. So against engineers, actually I'll do dealing with other classes in a separate video. Yeah, I'm a bit short on time here today, but I can do engineers and Necro and Ranger all in one for the how to deal with the other classes build video. So yeah, that's the Necromancer PvP class guide. Hope you guys liked it. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Subscribe for more always, and I'll probably upload some more content soon and try and start streaming if I can, but that uses up a lot of internet. But anyway, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.